Hey, pretty mama. Blue Gabumon X and a BeelStarmon deck?
I am sickened, but curious.
You're watching Taste of Victory.
Welcome back, everybody. Here's a really fun BT9 deck because you love to see old decks get new power in a new set, and that is going to be BeelStarmon this time. So BeelStarmon is a control deck that can be very aggro in its late game because of BeelStarmon's effect itself. It is a level 6 Digimon that has 3 to Digivolve, 12 memory to play, 11,000 DP, but its effect is really where it shines. It has, when playing this card from your hand, reduce its play cost by 1 for each 3 Musketeers Digimon card or option card with a memory cost of 7 in your trash. On play, return 1 option card with a memory cost of 7 from your trash to your hand, then use 1 option card with a memory cost of 7 in your hand without paying its memory cost. So the idea is you want to mill, discard, whatever you can to fill up your trash with these options, and with 3 Musketeer Digimon, mainly just BeelStarmon itself for the 3 Musketeer type, to increase that count in your trash and play it for cheaper every single turn, eventually getting free BeelStarmons as the game goes on long enough. So BeelStarmon is a deck that thrives in the late game. If it hasn't already rushed you down in the mid game because it already has like 4 cost BeelStarmons that it can play down and nail ball down a wider board, then it will absolutely control you and just keep recurring freer and freer Digimon every time in the late game. So you have to finish this deck off as fast as you can. So it's a really exciting deck, and let's see the crazy stuff that BT9 brings it to power it up. First off, let's start with our eggs. We have DemiMeramon, a very classic purple egg, basically the best egg in purple. On deletion, trigger, draw 1, then trash 1 card in your hand. Helps you cycle through your deck and helps you choose specifically what you want to put into your trash to make sure those Musketeer 7 cost options end up in trash. Amazing, easy to trigger egg. Then let's go ahead and start with Gabumon first, and we get to why we are already Gabu X. We have Gabumon from Booster Set 1.0. This is on deletion, trigger, draw 2, and then trash 1 card from your hand. So it's basically a stronger version of DemiMeramon that again lets you cycle through your deck and put what you want in your trash. It's amazing, and that's why we are running Gabumon X. So the old Gabu is an inheritable effect. So being able to quickly evolve into it over Gabu X is crucial because you can Digivolve for free in the raising area, so you can just go into that, come out, swing, and you immediately have your mills and draws live, which is really huge. You don't really care about its on play or Digivolving, potentially sending your stuff to bottom of deck, since there's nothing you can grab with it in this deck, because you're going to want to prioritize doing it in raising. And even if it comes down to it where you simply have to go into it in the battle area and you're bottom decking some stuff, it's not the end of the world, because the value trade-off of being able to so quickly get this thing live to be able to draw, trash, and cycle is really huge, which is why we were running 2 of this. Only 2 because that is our only target, is that 1 Gabumon to Digivolve over this, so we don't want to brick on this early game. It's also really nice because it's another source to turn on your blue options that we will see later in this game. So it's always better to have more sources to turn those on than having to rely on just a couple of tamers. After that, we got 4 Gazimon. Gazimon is incredible because it stops your opponent from gaining memory except with tamer effects. So a lot of decks in this format will be running the memory boosting options for consistency. So being able to turn those off is great. We run it at 4 because the more you see of it, the better. Because having just 1 is usually not enough. Many decks are equipped with ways to get rid of it. So if you get multiple of these out, it makes it a lot harder for your opponent to clear them and get their memory boost options live, unless they have something like Dracmon. Also, we have the new Gazimon X-antibody to go with it, which is why we're running 4, so we have targets to Digivolve over it for free. It is when Digivolving, trash the top 3 cards of your deck. That's it. That is all you need. That is such a huge mill to be able to quickly fill up your trash with the options you want to see for BeelStarmon, so this card is really clutch. It's also 3k as opposed to the other 2k in our rookies, so it can live over a couple of your opponent's rookies in security when swinging. That's a nice little bonus. After that, we have the 1 Psychemon, 3 memory to play, 3000 DP, all turns. Players can reduce play cost. So Reaper has been getting a lot of popularity now, so you want to tech for it to make its life a little bit more difficult. This doesn't stop Reaper itself because it specifically sets itself to the memory cost, not reduces it, but for the entire rest of the deck, it does affect it. This stops Mother's effect where it reduces Reaper's cost based on sources underneath it, so it is really great to be able to slow down Reaper in the early game like that. Only 1 because we do run Nailbone in this deck and you can just recycle it over and over again, so that's enough to see it and eventually keep recycling it. Then we have Dracmon. On play, you may return 1 purple option card with a play memory cost of 1 or 7 from your trash to your hand. So this is good recursion to be able to get stuff back if you're not seeing BeelStarmon, or if you need more ways to grab back options than just that. So it's a nice little option there to get a body on board and then also get your options back. Because this doesn't just grab your 7 cost, it also grabs your 1 cost options, so being able to stock up on extra copies of those 1 cost options that we're about to see is really crucial. Next up, we got our level 4s. So we have 2 blockers of Vilemon because Vilemon is a 6k blocker. People underestimate these in any format going forward. But the fact that you're able to recycle these with the nail bone played for free off of BeelStarmon is what makes this really good and better in a lot of other decks. Being able to get constant blockers on the field makes life so miserable for your opponent. 6,000 is a nice DP threshold. Since we're basically never going to worry about digivolving into this guy, we don't really care about being 2 memory costs to digivolve versus 1, because you just want to get it in your trash and then recycle it over and over again with nail bone. So this does come up very clutch to be able to constantly get these up in a turn, as opposed to just hoping to digivolve over it in a normal deck and have it out for 1 turn. After that, we have 2 Ginkakumon promote. It is 6 memory to play, 6,000 DP, 2 memory to digivolve from a level 3, and only 1 from a level 4. It has Rush, which is the main reason we're going to be running. It does have an on-play effect, but because we are not running the rest of the Ginkakumon package, it literally is not relevant to this deck. The main thing we want it for is Rush. You're going to play this out with your nail bone for free later on in the game, and keep recycling it over and over again as it dies, and then you're able to win from whatever security they were at, since you're able to keep just recycling your Ginkakumons that have Rush over and over again. If you don't die to security, we have ways in this deck to delete it ourselves to keep recycling it over and over again, as long as we have a BeelStarmon or a Nailbone in hand, whatever it is. So the reason we run 2, because a lot of decks seem to be liking it at 1, but I just like 2 to make sure we absolutely mill it. Like, we want to see this, we want to mill it. I think 1, you do get through your deck pretty fast in this deck, but I just want to make sure it is milled. So we're running it at 2 just to make sure we see it at any point in the game. However, if you need to make room for other spots, you could do it there. After that, we have Eyesmon. Eyesmon is a good old boy. 2 to digivolve from a level 3, 4 memory to play, 4,000 DP, on deletion, draw 3, and then trash 2 cards in your hand. So this card is just absolutely insane because you get to draw 3 and then trash 2 cards in your hand. So that is 2 specific cards you get to trash. So you could put any amount of Musketeer options, you can even put another BeelStarmon you don't need and then recycle it back later. So this quickly fills up your trash, draws any pieces you are missing if you still haven't seen BeelStar like that. It's incredibly crucial to the deck, even if you don't run the other Eyesmon, the regular one, because you just want to draw fast and fill up trash. It's so good. And then you have ways to delete it on your own, because yeah, with 4,000 DP, it will not always die to your security, and it's pretty annoying. So definitely keep in mind, you want to make sure you have those 1-cost options to delete your own Digimon, just in case you need it to make sure this thing dies. And then we get to our options and tamers, which basically makes up the entire other half of the deck. BeelStarmon will basically always be hard stabbed in this deck, so there is literally no reason to ever run a level 5, because like you'll never digivolve into it. You're always hard stabbing it with its own effect. So let's go ahead and look at these options and see what they do for us. First up, the spicy tech, maybe not so spicy, people are catching on to it, is 2 of Howling Crusher. It is 7 to play, so it does synergize with BeelStarmon's effect. Main, trash all Digivolution cards under all of your opponent's Digimon. So this is really cool against a lot of matchups in this format, because they are really reliant on their inheritables. You know, you want to have that you want to have those specific X-antibody Digimon in their line a lot of the time to be able to activate effects if they're not seeing the X-antibody option. So this will not trash the X-antibody option, but this will trash all their security attack +1s, all their name-specific Digimon they might need, and stuff like that. Because if you put this out on a Oryuken that had protection, it just becomes a vanilla, you know? If they weren't able to finish you off, or if this came out in security, they just have a vanilla Oryuken now, so it doesn't really become as threatening if they weren't able to finish you off in that same turn. So this is nice. I think 2 of is nice, and you could even consider going down to 1, but being able to clear your opponent's entire board sources is really huge, I think, for this deck, to be able to make sure they're set back and not as threatening as they once were. The more important and impactful options, however, are Cocytus Breath. Main, return one of your opponent's Digimon to its owner's hand, trash all Digivolution cards, as security activates main effect. Again, 7 cost to be able to trigger BeelStarmon's effects to make them live. And this one is really awesome because it gets around a lot of protection in the format. You don't have to worry about destroying anything, you just get to set them back by putting it into their hand, and then setting them back in the entire turn. So this is really huge because a lot of decks are really, like every deck in this format is basically go tall and they have a huge stack. So be able to waste that entire stack by just bouncing it to hand for free is gigantic. Not having to be worried about deletion protection or anything like that is really useful. There are some decks that are going to be able to protect against the bounce, and that's fine. You just time your effects around it. After that, we have 4 of Fly Bullet, because this card is really great. If you have a Digimon with 3 Musketeers and its type in play, you may play this option without meeting its color requirements, and then main, delete one of your opponent's level 6 or lower Digimon. So that's great. It's just quick removal while also playing into the 7 cost threshold that we need for this deck. It is a little unfortunate that you can't hit 7s or higher, but that's what Cocytus Breath is for. So they pair with each other very nicely, and it offers just a really good fast removal. Then we have our 1-cost options down here. This is Calling from Darkness. Main, delete one of your opponent's Digimon, period. Then return up to 2 purple Digimon cards from your trash to your hand. So if you don't have a Digimon on the field, you can still play this if you didn't delete a Digimon. You still get the effect live without meeting this first part. It's just like if you have it on the field, you have to pay it. So Calling from from Darkness is very clutch. If you have an empty board, you're still able to get it off. And then recycling up to 2 of your purple Digimon is huge, because you're going to need that to get back your BeelStarmons and get back your Psychemons and stuff like that, to be able to grind out matchups. So this card is really important, and if you feel like you can make room for it, I would even justify putting this to 3. I think 3 is really important, so you could always keep recycling your BeelStarmon for as long as the game goes. You can maybe cut down on one other option to up this to 3, but that's going to be your personal option. But that's going to come down to your personal preference. After that, we have Missed Memory Boost, 3 to play, trash the top 2 cards of your card and then draw 1, and of course later you get to delay it next turn to gain 2 memory. Awesome, because not only does it fill up your trash or BeelStarmon, it also helps draw, potentially unbricking you, and then you later get to delay it for 2 memory. Amazing, because it does so much for a memory boost card. Then we have Deathclaw, 1 to play, main, delete one of your Digimon to delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. So notice how the wording is different from Calling from Darkness. You do need to delete a Digimon. If you can't play this card. But that's really great to be able to set off our effects like Eyesmon Scatter Mode, if it doesn't die to security. If this doesn't die to security either, the Ginkakumon Promote, we could kill it ourselves and then recycle it back with BeelStarmon and Nailbone to put it back in trash if it's the only copy we have in trash. So Deathclaw has a lot of utility, because not only is it setting up your effects, it's also deleting your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, so you can get rid of a blocker. You can get rid of a memory blocker too. It's a really useful card. Love it. Then we have Nailbone. This card is amazing. 7 costs, so it plays into our effects. Main, you may play 1 purple level 3 Digimon card and 1 purple level 4 Digimon card from your trash without paying the memory costs. On plays don't activate. And then security, you get to play 1 level 4 or lower Digimon without playing their on play effects for free. So this card off of BeelStarmon is insane. You just get to create such a huge board that your opponent needs to answer or they're losing next turn, or you can win this turn by recycling out your Ginkakumon promotes and just creating a huge security swing, because you just get to attack over and over again. Nailbone is crucial. I really like 3 so you don't brick on it too early, because you want to be able to put it in trash as early as possible, or use it when you have a good memory threshold to not pass over to your opponent too much if you don't have BeelStarmon live yet. But this does so much for the deck. I think 3 is good to not brick on it. If you really want to see it at 4, I think you could justify it again, just cut down on another option you have less preference for, and you would just up this. It's an incredible momentum card that in the late game just seals the game for you. After that, we have Happy Bullet Showering, 7 costs. You can ignore color requirements if you have a 3 Musketeer in this type. And then main, delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP. So this is your savior against Rookie Rush if they're not playing around this and play a bunch of same memory cost Digimon. And if your opponent wasn't thinking, maybe they have like a couple blockers on the field, the identical blocker, like maybe 2 blocker Kabuterimons to stall out a couple of turns. It's a very niche scenario, but it will clear a board like that. So basically, it's really nice. It helps you clear somewhat wide boards if they have even 2 Digimon with the same play cost. So it's pretty useful as a board answer. But mainly, we just want it for that 7 cost option to help fill up our trash. And then finally, our blue tamer to make sure we have more sources to get Cocytus live is going to be Kiyoshiro. 4 costs to play. Start of your turn. If you have 2 memory less, set your memory to 3. So it guarantees us 3 memory to start of our turn, which even in a deck with high expensive play costs like BeelStarmon is still always nice. And in your turn, when you attack with a Digimon that has Jellimon in its name or level 5 or higher, if you have 7 or fewer cards in hand, you may suspend the tamer to draw 1. So when you're attacking with BeelStarmon, it's basically if you have less cards in hand, able to recycle you back up and draw more cards to get what you need if you're still missing something. So it's a really nice blue tamer that still has utility even in a non-blue deck, which is why we're running it at 2, hoping to see it to get our blue options live. But most of the times we'll be playing our blue options with BeelStarmon, so we don't need to always see this on field to be able to play them from hand, because ideally you'll be having them in trash already for BeelStarmon. So that is going to be the list, and there is a few tech options you can consider running if you can find the space for them. First up is going to be Death X-mon, known as Dexmon in Japanese. So Dexmon is an absolutely insane card that plays itself for a very reduced cost if your opponent has a wide board, because it also includes tamers in his counts. And then on play or when digivolving, de-digivolve 1 to all of your opponent's Digimon, then delete all of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, and then still further, at the end of your opponent's turn, once per turn, delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. So Dexmon is really clutch in this deck because it helps solve wide boards. Rookie Rush, Rush Down strategies, aggro decks, stuff like that is something that BeelStarmon kind of can potentially struggle against if you're not having a good security role. If you're seeing all of your champions and all of your rookies in security, it becomes kind of annoying because they get to rush you down with their bodies sticking on board and you have to now answer them, or you're going to be in a pretty bad position. So Dexmon is a solution to that if you are not seeing your stuff in security. If you can find space for it, I think 2 copies of it is really nice. Ogremon seems to be a popular tech card in the deck as well because it lets you be a little bit more aggressive while filling up your trash. It is 2 to digivolve over, 6 memory to play, 5000 DP. When attacking, you may trash a card in your hand to get this Digimon security attack +1, and then it's heritable isn't really something we're worried about since we don't run level 5s. but it lets you trash an additional card in your hand early on in the game, so that helps you fill up your trash specifically for what you want in BeelStarmon, and then has the potential to get 2 checks, which lets you be a little more aggro early on. So it is 5000 DP, so the chances to live those are kind of low, but there are a lot of tamers and rookies with low DP thresholds in this deck, so once in a while it will come up, let you be a little aggro while filling up your trash, so it's a nice little level 4 target, something to consider, especially when you can recycle it back with BeelStarmon. And Nailbone. Analog Youth is another great tamer that you can also run in this deck because it reveals the top 3 cards of your deck, it searches you a Digimon, and then it trashes the other 2. So say you reveal 1 Digimon and 2 options, that is mad value for a 2-cost tamer. And then later, if your BeelStarmon dies, you can get a memory back and then hatch a Digimon to an empty space in your breeding area with this effect, getting you all set up for another aggro turn, potentially for getting a free memory for Calling of Darkness to get it back, or just play another BeelStarmon without passing too much memory. So Analog Youth has a lot of synergy in this deck by quickly filling up your trash and drawing you cards, and potentially getting you back memory and letting you be more aggro with that extra egg hatch. So if you don't worry too much about the blue requirements, or you could find space somewhere else, Analog Youth is definitely a justifiable tamer that really helpful in this deck to consider running. In terms of matchups, I think this deck is really honestly a solid rogue contender into the format, being able to counter the top decks pretty well. I think you have a pretty even matchup into Alphamon, maybe a little bit favor for Alphamon just because it's such a crazy deck, but because they have to spend so much time building and raising, you are able to set up your trash and have an amazing grinding game against them. A lot of your options kind of help prevent their ability to trash their sources and go for game with its Alphamon or Ryukin effect as well. So if it comes to it and they're not able to rush you fast enough, this puts them on a clock. One of your harder matchups is going to be Wargreymon X because it could just completely easily shut off your security and then absolutely rip through it, gain memory back for ripping through it, and keep continuing its turn. So it's an amazing deck that kind of struggles into this one. I definitely think that's a Wargreymon X favored matchup, but again, it's a climb deck, so it needs to build up. If you're able to high roll well enough, you can take it out early in the game and prevents it from going into that kind of board state. I think you surprisingly have a pretty even matchup into Metal Gabumon. Because they rely so much on battle protection and your options delete a lot of their stuff, you would think that it's a pretty easy matchup, but unfortunately having to rely on security is at the end of the day a toss-up. If they are only seeing your rookies and champions in security, it is really easy for them to just absolutely aggro you down before you can even set up. I personally haven't had much trouble with that matchup as Metal Gabumon rushing down BeelStarmons. And then also they can tech in the red package, which makes your life even more miserable as they turn off all your options to security. So I think overall, because you do have the ability to control them, if they're not seeing that, it's an even matchup. It just depends like what you run into and how people draw in that matchup. Granted, Ginkakumon is another deck that needs pretty decent setup and fierce security, so I think it's also a pretty even matchup. You could absolutely rush them down if they are not drawing well, so I would give the edge a little bit to BeelStarmon. I think BeelStarmon is basically going to end up the definition of a really powerful rogue deck, and it's going to be like tier 1.5, top of tier 2 by the end of the format, because once people get used to it, I think it'd actually be able to do well into a lot of the decks. I don't think it has an inherently bad matchup into any deck necessarily, like not losing matchup, and you can tech very well for a lot of your matchups, so I think it's going to be a really strong contender if you know how to pilot it and are able to get your hands on this deck. But that is going to be the profile. Let me know what you guys thought. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, remember to stay hungry until you get a taste of victory.